Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the online regulation G VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'm going to be featuring the team that Patrick Connors used to win the 2024 North American International Championships. This was one of the largest VGC tournaments of all time with over 900 players competing in the Masters division, and Patrick was able to win the entire tournament with the team crafted around Calyrex Ice Rider. You've also got strong support from things like Water Tera, Choice Scarf Urshifu, Booster Energy, Special Attack Raging Bolt with Fairy Tera, Pelliper, Incineroar, and Rillaboom. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, and this episode is special in particular because Patrick is actually going to join us and break down the team with us. But as always, if you're just interested in checking out the battles, check out the timestamps linked down in the description below. I also did an interview with Patrick. I just really wanted to hear about his victory after NAIC because it's one of the most incredible stories we've seen in VGC. So if you want to check that out, I'll link the video down in the description below as well. Anyway, thanks so much as always for joining me. If you enjoy, I'd really appreciate it if you consider leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a ton, and let's dive into things. As always, if you're interested, the rental code is on the screen and there's also a paste link down in the description below. Like I mentioned, this team is heavily centered around Calyrex Ice Rider, but it has a lot of other offense. The reality is that Rillaboom, Urshifu, Pelliper, and Raging Bolt can all deal massive amounts of damage. Incineroar here has Will-O-Wisp, which is particularly handy against physical attackers like other Calyrex Ice Riders as well as Zamazenta. Assault Vest Rillaboom is a really nice Pokemon in general in the format and helps out particularly against Pokemon like Miraidon. Scarf Urshifu plus Pelliper is just a nasty combination, and you've even got coaching on Urshifu to get around things like Thunderclap from Raging Bolt, and you can also, of course, boost your own Calyrex and other Pokemon stats. Raging Bolt here is a Fairy Tera booster energy set, which allows you to have a better matchup into opposing Raging Bolts, and also allows you to dish out massive amounts of damage. Just to provide some quick context, like I mentioned, Patrick won the 2024 North American International Championships, which was the last major tournament before the 2024 World Championships. Over 900 players competed in the Masters division, and Patrick was one of the 2 Calyrex Ice Rider players in the top 8. He used a standard core, but with some unique additions, of course, like that Fairy Tera booster Raging Bolt, as well as normal Tera Rillaboom and coaching Urshifu in order to claim the title. So if you want to check out the rest of the teams from this tournament, I'll link it down in the description below. And of course, if you want to watch Patrick games from the tournament, I highly recommend you do. If you want to see how the Master piloted it, I'll also link that in the description below. All right, talking about the team now, this is a really special one because we've actually got Patrick with us here to walk us through the team. Of course, Patrick built this team and won the North American International Championships with it. So, Patrick, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, I would love to hear about how this team came together.
Absolutely. So, I guess the first piece to discuss is Incineroar. It's a very standard Tera Ghost Will-O-Wisp set. The only, I think, unique thing about it is it has an adamant nature and a significant amount of attack investment. For the most part, the bulk is a bit of sliders, so the bulk is just kind of there to have some bulk, but the attack and speed is somewhat relevant. The speed is to outspeed most Farigiraphs that exist on Ice Rider teams as well as on Miraidon teams, because often they're running slower giraffes. The attack is enough to guarantee a KO into Terrifier Calyrex whenever you double up with knockoff and surging strikes from Urshifu.
That makes a lot of sense. Urshifu, I think, is one of the interesting points of your team as well, because you, of course, are running this Water Tera with coaching and not very much bulk, actually. And so I know people were previously investing on Urshifu to survive Thunderclap from Raging Bolt, but I'm guessing that's not something you were as worried about. And you decided to use coaching, which is really cool as well.
So generally, I think if you're trying to play around Raging Bolt, coaching is a really good option, or just making a switch out into one of the things that resists electric coverage, like Rillaboom or your own Raging Bolt. So I wanted to maximize the damage I got from Urshifu in rain while also having a slight bit of bulk. So I made it adamant nature and got it to the bump to 198. And that picks up KOs even on very bulky Calyrexes in rain. And a really nice utilization of Calyrex plus Urshifu as a lead is that you can often Surging Strikes, Tera Water, and KO a Calyrex Shadow, even through Citrus Berry because of Calyrex Ice's Unnerve. So the Tera Water is really nice for hitting that range, and I wanted to make sure to get at least enough attack to hit the 198 bump, and then obviously have the 149 speed to outspeed Calyrex Shadows at their 222 speed step.
That makes sense. I think one of the coolest partners for Urshifu, of course, is the Pelliper that you decided to run, and so looking at its set, it feels relatively straightforward. But curious about how you came to decide on Pelliper specifically.
So Pelipper is obviously the natural partner if you want to beat Koraidon or Groudon often with your Calyrex Ice teams.
Yeah.
Koraidon become a really big issue if you do run into Calyrex, and they're the bulkier variants or the variants that have really good proto utilizers like the Specs or Sash Fluttermanes or the AV bulky Raging Bolts. So Pelipper just allows you to be able to eat more hits from the Koraidon and the Sun Abusers, as well as provides you a really good defensive choice against fire types outside of tearing your Pokemon. So it makes the Chi-Yu matchup easier with Wide Guard for Heat Wave and Snarl, as well as mitigating the damage from the fire moves. The spread is also just a slight bit of bulk. Max speed, outspeed, a lot of the fake out like cycling mons like Rillaboom and Incineroar. And then the special attack, I decided to remove some points from special attack because, like I said, the Pelipper is primarily there to beat Koraidon. And Hurricane's role on Koraidon changes very little by removing this much special attack from Pelipper. So just running some calcs and understanding that I didn't really need the extra special attack for any meaningful calcs allowed me to kind of dump it a little bit into bulk, and that's nice for certain things like other Urshifu's Surging Strikes. I believe some Urshifus can KO without the bulk, but I'm also not 100% sure. Pretty confidently, so it does help the rolls against that as well.
Makes a lot of sense. The next Pokemon I want to get pick your brain about is Raging Bolt. You're actually using a max special attack variant, it looks like, with booster energy and Fairy Tera. So, some people were using like Assault Vest sets, for example. Some people were using like Super Speedy. But how did you end up on this EV spread specifically in this set?
So Raging Bolt kind of is the Bolt Beam other half of the duo with Calyrex. Like a lot of Calyrex teams either run Hands or Bolt. And I knew I wanted to run Bolt just so I wouldn't be any weaker to Wisp Incineroar since I'm not running a Taunt Incineroar variant. So I ran max special attack Bolt because I didn't run the max offense of my Calyrex Ice. I actually decided to include a significant amount of special bulk. So I wanted to make sure at least one of my halves of the duo was able to kind of make up for the lack of damage from the other one. So 224 hits the HP recovery bump from Rillaboom. 4 and 4 into each of the bulks because I want it to be just slower than the Pokemon that hit 105, which I believe are the base 85 Pokemon like Indeedee and Rillaboom. So I wanted to always be slower than them unless they're running 0 speed themselves. But I also wanted to outspeed the slower AV bolts as well. So the speed investment was just to underspeed the base 105s and also outspeed the bulkier bolts. And like the max special attack is pretty self-explanatory. I just wanted as much damage out of Raging Bolt as possible, especially because I forewent the Electric Tera for Tera Fairy, which obviously helps patch up the Dark Urshifu matchup for this team, which otherwise doesn't have many good defensive answers outside of my Urshifu. So it really helps into Darkfu, and it also helps into the Miraidon matchup if they lock into Draco Meteor.
That makes a lot of sense. The remaining two pieces we haven't talked about yet are Rillaboom and, of course, Ice Rider. So, Rillaboom...
Oh, that should be Terra Normal.
Yeah, no worries.
The spread's correct, though.
Yeah. So, I think this is actually one of the more fascinating pieces of your team, even though, like, it's, a pretty standard Pokemon. A lot of people often have Mungus over Rillaboom on this slot with these kind of team compositions. So, yeah, curious about the decision to use Rillaboom and, of course, then the EV spread as well.
Okay. The main things that I took into consideration whenever I was building this Rillaboom set was that I wanted to make sure I could 2-hit KO Iron Hands and grassy terrain. So that's what the attack investment's for.
Oh, wow.
And then the speed investment is to outspeed Timid Ursaluna because often the Miraidon teams will not run Tailwind into these Calyrex teams. So the Ursaluna usually hits 114. So hitting 115 allows you to have 3 pieces that get to outspeed the Timid Ursaluna, which would otherwise be able to throw off Hyper Voices and Blood Moons without much punishment, especially with Frigiraf blocking Fake Out on those teams often, as well as coming into Foul Player Calyrex. So just being able to outspeed and throw off Wood Hammers on the Timid Ursaluna is a really nice thing to have.
Makes sense. And then, of course, that leads us to the last piece, which is the Ice Rider. And I think a lot of people normally just use max attack, max HP, and you mentioned you have some special bulk here. So curious about the decision to go for Water Tera specifically, as well as investing more in Spadef.
I wasn't overly afraid of Will-O-Wisp or Spore with this team. I feel like I have plenty of at least offensive answers to kind of account for those two statuses. So I didn't want to run one of the utility Teras, and Water tends to be like the general best defensive type, especially on a rain team. Calyrex Ice, for my testing early on when I was running Tera Fire, can really get pressured by other Urshifus because you're setting up rain often, and they could just blow you up, and you're not able to defensively Tera around that. And Water, you're really only threatened by Raging Bolt and Rillaboom in the meta currently, and both of those things are very afraid to switch in and take a Glacial Lance anyway. And you could always reposition your Incineroar or your Rillaboom to fake out those pieces and not allow them to get their offensive moves out. So Tera Water is just a really natural choice to be able to beat some of the really impressive water types who kind of otherwise do a lot of damage to my Pokemon. As well as you maintain your resistance to other Calyrexes, and you also resist fire moves like from Chi-Yu, and you don't have to sacrifice much defensive prowess with it. So I just found it to be the best defensive type. And like I said, the two things that do threaten the water type Tera are usually also threatened by Calyrex, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword for them. And I found that to be really easy to play around in practice and more terrifying in theory. And the special bulk is really the only thing that I took into consideration. I survive a Life Orb Astral Barrage from Timid Max Special Attack Calyrex.
Oh, wow.
If it's spread. Guaranteed survive that. So being able to survive that, not have to Tera in front of even a very offensive Calyrex Shadow is a really nice thing to be able to have. Obviously, you die to any sort of double up, but just having that amount of special bulk really came in clutch. It also can help you against like your Terapagos matchup or your Miraidon as well, because if you're not Terra'd and you have grassy terrain up, you can even survive a Terra Electric Electro Drift all the time. So the special bulk's really good. You don't sacrifice that much offense, especially if you're pretty smart with your Urshifu and you're allowed to get yourself up a coaching. Or you're just able to snowball and pick off lower health Pokemon, kind of like the Calyrex Shadow balance teams play. So I hit that special bulk benchmark. I wanted to run a little bit of speed in order to outspeed the 31 IV like Brave Calyrex, as well as other base 50s that are uninvested, like your Iron Handses or your King Gambits. So that speed's just to slightly speed scrape other Calyrex Ices. And in practice, I believe only ran into one Calyrex Ice that was faster than mine. So it really did, it did do its job, that little bit of speed. And I often play this team outside of Trick Room anyway.
Love it. Super, super good insight on the team. Would love to pick your brain about common leads and general approaches to playing with the team.
Yeah, of course. So I think your best leads are pretty much one of the Fire, Water, Grass trio plus Calyrex or Raging Bolt plus Calyrex. Because you're able to provide, fake out Trick Room pressure, fake out Glacial Lance pressure. Raging Bolt and Calyrex make a really good offensive duo against slower teams or teams that rely on Amoonguss and Incineroar to kind of beat out the Calyrexes, especially if they're Tera Water. Amoongusses, they're really pinned by the Thunderbolt Glacial Lance pressure. And since I'm not like min speed Calyrex, I'm almost always going to outspeed an Amoonguss unless it's like, a max speed Amoonguss, which I have not run into. But the most common leads are Calyrex plus anything else or Fake Out plus Urshifu. Because being able to fake out something and bait out a Protect, and you're able to, Surging Strikes and, get off free damage is really nice. I think the only thing you really don't lead is Pelliper. I rarely lead Pelliper, but it can be really good if the team is very water weak and you just want to lead Pelliper Urshifu and do a lot of damage, but that doesn't come up much in practice. So Pelliper is often something you can carry in the back alongside your fake out members, but this team is really flexible and fluid. So I think that I've pretty much led every single lead combination with this team. And it's successful if the matchup demands it.
That makes a ton of sense. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is weaknesses. What are matchups or Pokemon or moves that have given you trouble when using this team?
I think the only matchup that I really find to be difficult to beat if played perfectly by my opponent is Calm Mind Terapagos with Will-O-Wisp Incineroar. Because I forewent Taunt, and I don't have a great way to answer Incineroar outside of Urshifu and Pelliper, which Terapagos can just remove the rain of and can set up with Calm Mind in front of that Urshifu and that Pelliper pretty freely. It allows Incineroar to kind of Will-O-Wisp Incineroar plus the setup Calm Mind Terapagos to really kind of beat the common cores and common leads into the team. But outside of Calm Mind, Terapagos with Will-O-Wisp, and Incineroar, I think every matchup is really even. I think you might have a slightly negative matchup in the Zamazenta, like most Ice Rider teams do. But and slightly negative in the Kyogre. But otherwise, the Tera Water also helps a lot into the Kyogre teams for the Calyrex. And yeah, honestly, I think it's just Calm Mind, Terapagos with Will-O-Wisp and Incineroar. It's the only really negative matchup.
Love it. Super, super good insight. Super excited to have you on. And yeah, really nice to kind of dive into the mind of the team builder and hear a little bit more. So Patrick, thanks so much for joining me and giving us insight about this team.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aaron, for having me.
Of course. All right, we've got a Shadow Rider team here, but with some really interesting Pokemon, mainly Taillow and Dondozo, which of course is a duel that had a lot of relevance in previous formats in Scarlet and Violet. It won the North American International Championships last year, but has really fallen off a little bit more recently. Flutter Chiyu, classic combo, and then Instant Calyrex. It's not really your standard Calyrex Shadow Rider team at all, and it's fascinating to see Ting-Lu here, because if you bring Ting-Lu, you are going to shut down some of your own damage output. So, let's see how we want to approach this. We want to be worried about things like Will-O-Wisp or Taunt from things like Chiyu, as well as Flutter and Incin. Wide Guard from Pelly is going to be really good into Shadow Rider. Normal Tera Rillaboom, really good into Calyrex. Honestly, one approach is just Pelliper Urshifu, but I suspect it'll be like Rocky Helmet Dozo. So, let's see. I think leading Ice Rider is fine. I think both Fake Out users is okay with Pelliper in the back. I do think Ursh is actually really strong here. If they didn't have Dondozo, I'd probably bring it. And it honestly is strong enough that it might still be worth considering. But what I'm really worried about is I think my opponent should be running Rocky Helmet somewhere. And so if I just Surging Strikes into a Rocky Helmet, user lets switching in, and then the other Pokemon just knocks Urshifu out, that would be a really bad trade. Whereas I think like Rillaboom, Incin, Pelliper, Calyrex is just so consistent. They're going to go with Incin and Flutter, okay? So here I'm actually thinking of going for Protect and Woodhammer into Flutter. Because often what they're going to want to do is click Fake Out into Calyrex. You don't want to Fake Out Rillaboom in case... actually, Fake Out into Rillaboom's not a bad play from their end. Speed Booster. I might just go Glacial Lance Fake Out actually instead. They could Shadow Ball me. Got Incin and Pelly in the back. I could switching into my own Incin isn't the worst idea here. I think Protect Woodhammer is okay. Because they could also be Ghost Tera Incin and try to Tera to get around Fake Out turn 1. They could also Protect Flutter Flare Blitz here onto either slot, or Knockoff, or Will-O-Wisp, or Taunt. A lot of options. There's a Tera though. Okay, show me Ghost Tera Incin. That would be exactly why I didn't want to click Fake Out onto it. Yeah, nice. Cool. So they really, really value this turn 1 just getting an attack off with Incineroar, and I'm okay with that. Flutter's not protecting, so I'm already really happy about this. Let's see what they go for. Thunder Wave, okay. I mean, that obviously adds some variance now to the game, which is scary. Will-O-Wisp into Calyrex, okay. Woodhammer, no paralysis, that's good. We actually get a crit, so we just knock out Flutter. I would have preferred to not crit there, though. The problem with critting there is now it gives my opponent a free switch in. So you can go out into Shadow Rider, for example. Whereas Flutter with Speed Booster and Thunder Wave shouldn't really do that much damage, and so I would have actually preferred Flutter to stay in and not faint, because then I can just Grassy Glide it and look for Trick Room the next turn. So Calyrex comes out now. I think what we should probably do here is just Tera my Calyrex, eat the burn, Trick Room here, and then pivot in Incineroar. Even with the burn, like at this point, Glacial Lance still does reasonable damage, and now that you've gone for this Ghost Tera with Incin, I can just click Knock Off. So I'm fine getting burned. Calyrex just does so much damage that even with burn, it's okay. The Incin here also intimidates their Incineroar, so you really should have little damage output with it. Going for Tera here, just, you know, make sure that we don't faint to Astral Barrage, plus an attack from Incin. So I feel pretty good about this one. Really was going to pivot out. Thunderwave Flutter Mane, by the way, is something that I've seen a lot more in the metagame recently. Just offers more speed control. You can also self Thunderwave to get around like Amoonguss Spores, which is kind of cool. And other status conditions, obviously. But I think if we get Trick Room up, we should be in a really good spot. Their team is just relatively fast-paced. And I'm guessing, yeah, like Thunderwave Flutter from their end would have been a pretty good solution to stop Urshifu from just beating Calyrex, for example. So they just go for Astral Barrage. That's fine. Nice. We don't really take too much from that. And just U-turn. Perfect. U-turn is interesting, though. You're running U-turn and Will-O-Wisp. So you're not Assault Vest. It's Dondozo coming out. Okay. Fine by me. Trick Room gets set up. You've already Terra'd, so my Rillaboom can just Woodhammer the Dondozo pretty easily. Knock off into the Calyrex slot is safe and guaranteed at this point. Pretty safe to Glacial Lance and Fake Out here. This turn at least. Calyrex probably wants to protect here, but I think if you're my opponent, actually, it would be really smart to just go for an attack right now. You could, of course, pivot back out into your Incineroar, but yeah, we bait out the Protect. And I'm totally happy with this. By baiting out Protect, it just means I can double up onto that slot next turn. Wasn't Rocky Helmet on Dondozo, though. Okay. So probably leftovers then. Could be Rocky Helmet Ting Lu. Either way, happy to just get some chip with Glacial Lance. Everyone heals back, and yep, it's leftovers. That's fine, though. We have Rillaboom to deal with you in the long run. My main fear probably is just knockoff. Or sorry, not knockoff. Fissure? I don't know if Wave Crash even knocks out Incineroar. That would be my other question. Because here I'm happy to just Glacial Lance and click knockoff into Calyrex. Yep, they switch into Incin, but that's fine. I think, like, Dondozo shouldn't be able to do too much to anything other than my Incineroar, but, I mean, Yawn plus Fissure can be a little bit annoying. Yeah, they're going to go for Yawn, which, honestly, I'm okay with here. Because my strategy now is to just attack around Dondozo. So, we get Glacial Lance here, not affected by your Intimidate. Incineroar's going to get the knockoff as well. Does not knock out Incineroar, but I think that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I would have probably preferred to get the knockout just to force Calyrex to protect here. Because now, like, I probably want to switch out my Calyrex, and they have pressure with Yawn. 2 turns of Trick Room left. How many turns of Terrain did I have left? 1 as well. So I probably want to conserve terrain turns here. I think switching in Pelly makes sense. Oh, but we don't want Incineroar to faint to Wave Crash. I think we actually really want to respect that option. So I might actually double switch here. Bring out Rilla and bring out Pelliper. The idea here is, yeah, Dondozo getting a Wave Crash off into Incineroar, especially if I were to switch in Pelliper, would be really careless, because Incin is so good into their Calyrex in this endgame. So we just want to conserve Incineroar a little bit better. Terrain's going to expire, but the upside of that is that they're going to start healing less with Dondozo. Okay, yep, fake out into Incin. And they try to yawn into the Rilla slot. Perfect. Great. Now I can go for... What do I even want to do here? Weather Ball into Incin is really safe. They'll probably try to yawn into Pelliper. I'm fine just clicking Wood Hammer into this and Weather Ball into this. Like, they've barely been able to do damage, right? Yep, Dondozo protects. That's fine. So Pelly should outspeed and just knock out Incin here. Rilla's actually still faster. Yeah, so we knock out the... Oh, yeah, because we still have Trick Room up. So we knock out Incin. Cool. And yeah, that just covered for every combination. I don't, like, need to Wood Hammer the Dondozo slot, and basically what that play covered for was Dondozo protecting and then Calyrex switching in. So I'm happy to ignore Dondozo right now because it's just not really exerting very much pressure. So Trick Room expires. Calyrex comes out. And obviously I have Wide Guard now as well. So I could just click... I could start clicking Wide Guard. We just have to think about the possibility that I could get fully paralyzed. I personally don't mind, like, Wood Hammer into Dondozo and Wide Guard. Okay. Calyrex is going to go for Tera Blast, but it's just a neutral Tera Blast, so it doesn't really do too much to Rillaboom. Nice, we don't get fully paralyzed. We get Wood Hammer off. Does a ton into Dondozo. They go for Yawn onto Pelliper. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Don't think Rilla faints from Astral Barrage here. And since Rilla is still faster than Dondozo, I don't mind going for... I mean, here I think if you're my opponent, you should actually maybe just bank on Astral, because, like, I want to switch out Pelliper into Incin right now. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Pelly into Incin. We have to be a little bit patient with this. The question is whether or not they protect the Dondozo here. I actually think U-turn on Rilla may have been a little bit stronger of an option. Okay, they just Tera Blast again. Cool. Yep, we survive. No paralysis. Great. We got lucky in this game that we didn't eat up any paras. It would have just been a little bit more annoying, but I felt like I had really good control of this game once we forced out the Incin Tera early. So Rilla faints now. I get Calyrex out, and then I can just Trick Room, knock off. Yeah, the main thing is, like, I don't do very much damage with Dondozo, with Incin or Calyrex. Pelliper can Hurricane it, but had to use Rillaboom in order to deal with it. But we had a lot of tools for their Shadow Rider here with Wide Guard, as well as Incin plus normal Tera. It's actually always better to Trick Room here and knock off. But yeah, I think the downside here is when Calyrex does not go for Tera, your Tera Blast is just a lot less strong, right? That's probably going to be something like Water Tera Blast if I had to guess. And if they were Water Tera Blast, it would have allowed them to deal a lot more damage, obviously, especially with Rain. But because they tried to go all in on this turn 1 play with Incineroar and didn't get any value out of it, it put them into a much tougher position. All right, we've got a Koraidon team here. A lot of Photosynthesis users in the Flutter as well as the Bolt. We've got Shiyu as well. Pelliper is really incredible into Koraidon, so I think Pelliper is a must-bring. All of our Pokemon are actually not bad here. I think Incin loses a lot of value if we assume they're Clear Amulet, which a lot of times they are. Bolt is really nice offensively. If we could set up Trick Room, that'd be great, but might be easier said than done. They have Bolt, which also scares the Urshifu out a little bit. I'm thinking the bottom 4 here. Like, part of what makes me scared about bringing the Fake Out users is Farigiraf. So I think I can maybe go with something like Ice Rider, Raging Bolt, with Ursh and Pelly in the back. One of the ways I'm thinking about this game is if we use Bolt to knock out their Bolts, it opens the game up for Urshifu. And Urshifu, Calyrex both threaten Bolt immensely. So I could see them leading Bolt to try to pressure my Urshifu, right? But yeah, I think one of the weaknesses of Koraidon is that it's just not very good into Pelliper. Pelliper is such a good counter, right? You can change the weather, you pressure with super effective Hurricane, you resist the attacks as well. Cool, it's going to be Bolt Farigiraf. I'm pretty happy to see that, I think. We should expect their Bolt to be faster. Near booster energy. Wouldn't be surprised if they were Trick Room in Prison here. Maybe Foul Play. Given that they're not booster energy, I mean, what are the odds? Like, what do you think the item on this is, right? That's the first question. Thinking about just going for Glacial Lance. I think double protecting turn 1 is also okay to kind of scout for what they want to do. But then it means they can safely double up onto a slot next turn. Okay, I'm going to Glacial Lance, Tera, and Draco. Okay. So the game is going to start off with Tera. We're going to go into Fairy. Maybe they're... I mean, I would expect their Bolt to have some speed. Nope. They're slower than us. Okay. I mean, I'm curious what the speed stat is on it then. But they're Electric Tera. Okay, I'm okay with that. However, this risks... like, they're probably, I would guess, Thunderbolting into us. But Draco's just going to come out immediately. Does a ton of damage onto them. They Draco into us, okay. Now my question is Farigiraf clicking Foul Play? Life Orb on their end. Nice, they Imprison. Yep, that's why I wanted a Glacial Lance. Perfect. And this is huge, right? Because the whole win condition I was talking about was eliminating the Raging Bolt early to open the door out for Urshifu. So I'm very happy with this turn 1. I was worried about Foul Play coming out from Farigiraf, but I figured anything else and we could be okay on the Calyrex. The Fairy Tera there is... I would expect a lot of Raging Bolts to be faster than us. Since we don't have that much speed investment on this. So, yeah, they're just slower. And I guess it makes sense because then you can operate under Trick Room and Tailwind, right? But they bring out Koraidon. Okay. So obviously you have Trick Room and Imprison and Protect. Oh, that's really valuable to note. Cool. Now that you've committed Tera, I mean, it's relatively safe, I'd say, to just switch into Pelly. And go for Draco onto Koraidon. Because, like, Farigiraf shouldn't really scare me that much, right? Your best move maybe would be Hyper Voice. But yeah, I love this Fairy Tera offensive Raging Bolt. Like, having the Fairy Tera just makes me feel a lot more confident when playing against opposing Raging Bolts. So, yeah, this is one of the reasons why, like, Pelliper is just such a good Pokemon. So good in shutting down Koraidon. We don't miss Draco Meteor. Beautiful. Super effective. And that just gets another KO. Excellent. That was a crit. Not sure if it mattered, like, since we do have booster energy, but either way, like, Koraidon was going to be caught in a really tough spot, and it would probably want to switch out the subsequent turn. So Psychic comes out, and we basically know Ferrograph's full moveset: Trick Room, Imprison, Protect, Psychic, right? So it's like this Ferrograph is designed to shut down Trick Room, but when I don't go for Trick Room, then you're just caught into a really tough spot. So they bring out Chi-Yu. We've got Scarf Ursh in the back, which obviously can just Surging Strikes. I probably want to switch this out. I'm okay going for Weather Ball here into Chi-Yu, and then switch Bolt out into Calyrex. Yeah, this works. I guess, I was going to say, what could be spooky if they Dark Pulse Psychic? Well, but if you do that, then I just get to switch him back out into Urshifu. What if you Trick Room? That doesn't seem very intuitive, but they do knock out Pelliper, but that's fine. Probably just Psychic coming out. Yep, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, Calyrex doesn't really take much. Now we just get Scarf Ursh in. I guess I could theoretically lose if this is Choice Scarf Chi-Yu and you flinch me with Dark Pulse. That would be interesting. I can just go Surging Strikes now onto the Chi-Yu and Glacial Lance. They are Scarfed! Okay. Did they flinch me? No. That was a little bit scarier than I would have liked, given how huge of a lead I felt like I had in this game. So their play is... I should have gone High Horsepower there to actually cover for Scarf Chi-Yu, or Trick Room, I think. Oh, but they end up clicking Psychic onto Calyrex anyway. Given that they're Scarf, yeah, I think your win con is you need to double up onto the Urshifu slot. So I'm not sure I love my Glacial Lance play there. But I guess if I had flinched Trick Room... Yeah, I think Surging Strike's High Horsepower is probably the play onto Chi-Yu. Because if Chi-Yu faints, then the Raging Bolt should just beat the Ferrograph fairly easily with Thunderbolt, right? Since their only offense is Psychic. But yeah, we just had a really strong lead in this game, and then Koraidon was just kind of completely neutralized since we had Pelliper. So I really, really like this Fairy Tera Bolt because of its matchup against opposing Raging Bolts. Alright, we've got Kyogre here with Mienshao, Rillaboom, Chiempao, Rory Moon, and Amoonguss. Not a standard Kyogre comp at all. It's pretty cool to see. Mienshao means I have to worry about Wide Guard. I think Ursh looks really good here to deal with Mienshao and Chiempao, but that's it. Also, Mienshao and Chiempao are both Focus Sash Hogs, and so I'm curious, like, it's likely that maybe they have Life Orb on Chiempao or even like Assault Vest. I think Rilla is a must bring for sure. Rilla and Bolt, obviously, to deal with Kyogre. Kyogre is Grass Tera pretty frequently. Is there anything cool I could do with coaching, since there are a lot of physical attackers on their team? If I lead Pelly plus Urshifu, I'm vulnerable to Fake Out immediately. Vulnerable to Rillaboom as well. And their Amoonguss. I think I'm gonna go Ursh, Bolt, Chiempao, or sorry, Calyrex Rillaboom. I don't know though. I think Pelly and Incin both actually are decent in this matchup. Pelly gives me Hurricane into a lot of their team, including Amoonguss as well as Mienshao. And Incin gives me a switch in into Amoonguss with safety goggles. It also gives me Intimidate into Roaring Moon and Chiempao. Rilla, Kyogre, okay. This is interesting because obviously you could Fake Out either slot right now. One would guess that you'd want to Fake Out the Raging Bolt though. I want a U-turn. I'm leaning towards U-turn and protect on turn 1 here. U-turn out into my Rillaboom. Get some chip. They could just grass Tera Kyogre though, fake out Urshifu. The other question is whether or not they have Thunder, because a lot of Kyogres don't carry Thunder. But I'm down for U-turn protect. If we can bait out a Tera on turn 1, I think that also is not a terrible start for us. Because then I can bring out the Calyrex, but they're not going to Tera, which makes me think it should be fake out into Bolt. Wow. It's Scarf Ogre, and they don't click fake out. Okay. Max speed Scarf Ogre. Not the most common set that you're going to run into, but it's particularly strong for best of 1 play like this. So that was a nice play by my opponent. That's okay, though. I can take advantage of the fact that your choice Scarf, and the fact that you basically, I think, have to switch out right now. I should survive Wood Hammer Thunder onto Calyrex. So it's an opportunity to set up Trick Room. However, I think Amoonguss switching in right now feels somewhat likely. I actually want to take this as an opportunity to just straight up Glacial Lance. And Thunderbolt into the Kyogre slot. But yeah, max speed Scarf Ogre is kind of the worst thing we could have run into when you're using Scarf Ursh. That's not something that... Like, Scarf on Kyogre is not exactly a super uncommon item. So I shouldn't be absolutely shocked by it. I think the speed is what maybe surprises me a little bit. Because I would expect them to be modest. Can you outspeed my Urshifu with... Because I think we're basically max speed on Ursh, right? By admin. Rill is going to be the one to pivot out. Okay, maybe into Chien-Pao. Nope, it's going to be into Mienshao. Okay. They just go for Thunder onto Calyrex. Which doesn't really do too much. Oh, he gets a paralysis, though, which doesn't feel great. We get Thunderbolt, Booster Energy, gets the knockout. Let's see if I attack through paralysis right now. Ah, that feels so bad. Okay. Because if Mienshao wasn't sashed, that would... actually, I don't know if it would knock out, even with single target, but it would do enough where I could just finish it off with a Thunderclap, right? Really comes out now. I would expect fake out in a Calyrex, but they could theoretically feint into it. There's double fake out pressure from their end right now. I doubt they ever let me get Trick Room up. The upside of the paralysis is it does mean you can't Spore me anymore. I'm leaning towards protecting Calyrex right now and then going for Thunderbolt onto Mienshao. I could see a world in which they really play aggressively here and double up on a Calyrex with Wood Hammer plus Close Combat. Okay, they just went for Close Combat into Bolt, so they're... Oh, it might be High Horsepower onto Bolt as well. That'd be a really good play. Okay, Wood Hammer into Calyrex, that's fine. Because now I can just Thunderclap Trick Room next turn. Yeah, you are sashed. Okay. So this is where the paralysis hurts a little bit last turn, because if we had gotten that, then, you know, they're just in Thunderclap KO range. I think it's still fine, though. The question is whether or not I even want to... They could Wide Guard right now, right? I'm fine still clicking Trick Room here, I think. I think Trick Room Thunderclap is still safe. Especially since I'm paralyzed, I don't have to worry about back Amoonguss. Wide Guard High Horsepower is the play I would make if I were on their side of the field right now. But if you do that, then I get Rillaboom out, I just fake out Mienshao Glacial Lance. Without the paralysis in this game, I think I'd be a lot less scared, but it's just the chance that at any point I might not be able to move, which is scary. I also don't know what their last one is, but Roaring Moon is not that scary. Okay, they just offer Feint, which is fine. Is this Choice Band Rillaboom, actually? They're playing like it is. Well, we survive, which is good. Nice. And no full para, that's huge. Cool. I'm gonna guess they faint into us again. Was that banded damage? It didn't feel like it personally. Got my Rilla in the back. I think I want to switch Calyrex out into Rilla right now. And Draco into Rilla. Okay, so we pivot out. It's a fairly obvious switch is the thing, so part of me wanted to just risk it and click Glacial Lance. Okay, they wide guard, yep. That's fine. Yep, we're faster. We get Draco Meteor off here. We get the knockout. Okay, great. So now I can just Grassy Glide Mienshao. Rain stops. Mienshao, we've seen close combat, feint, wide guard. Should be fake out. Grassy Terrain disappears, which is fine. Let's see what their last one is. Champao? It was Amoonguss. Okay. So yeah, actually, this is where I guess the paralysis may have ended up hurting them because it means that they couldn't bring this out to Spore me. So I'm happy to just click Woodhammer now into Mienshao and switch back out into Calyrex. Actually, hold on. Let's think this through. This game is not 100% over. I'd rather click Draco right now. Yeah, Woodhammer into you, Draco. I mean, Amoonguss shouldn't be able to do enough damage to KO everything. Quick Guard is their last one, so they don't even have Fake Out on the Mienshao. Okay, they Spore onto the Bolt, but that's fine. Basically, the logic in how I'm playing this is we have a guaranteed win once Calyrex is able to get out on the field safely and just click Glacial Lance post Trick Room, right? What I didn't want to do is switch out Calyrex and then have them knock me out. Even if they did that, I think it's still probably fine. I don't think Amoonguss would be able to win the 2v1. But just double checking board state. 2 turns of Trick Room left. So yeah, I'm just going to click Woodhammer and Draco. And the idea is for them to get a knockout onto one of these two so I can just bring out Calyrex and Glacial Lance. Or to just Draco a bunch and then reset the special attack drops on Raging Bolt. Either is fine. So yeah, despite the surprise of their max speed, or what should be close to max speed, Choice Scarf Kyogre, I think we should still be in a pretty good spot. And the main reason for this is because by confirming that you're Scarf Kyogre, it means that I can use that information, right? And so they didn't have very much to pressure me the subsequent turn. So yeah, Amoonguss goes for Protect. Like, I'm just going to stay in with both of these and keep clicking Woodhammer and Draco Meteor. Amoonguss doesn't have infinite healing now that it can't switch out. So it should be pretty safe to do this. I just really want to make sure that we don't let the Calyrex faint as it switches in. Yeah, and Amoonguss is never going to win this scenario. You just don't do enough damage, basically. Okay, it's going to be Pollen Puff here. 197 down to 141. So that's actually reasonable damage, right? Bolt manages to wake up. Connects on Draco. Very nice. That's still really meaningful damage. We Woodhammer here as well. Brings you under half. Cool. Let's see for Citrus. Nope. Trick Room expires. Great. So just Woodhammer again. Draco again. Yeah, end up forfeiting. So, you know, when you have Choice Scarf on a Pokemon, I mean, Scarf on Kyogre, once again, not like super surprising, but, you know, even with Choice users, like sometimes your opponents are able to leverage it to get a big knockout, but then they're locked into a move until the next turn, right? So Thunder obviously is really good into Urshifu, not really good into the rest of our team. And so we were able to have a big turn and basically leverage that and get a lot of momentum back into our favor. But yeah, like, this one is an interesting one because essentially the paralysis meant that I could Trick Room with no downside, whereas if I didn't get paralyzed, then if I Trick Room, Amoonguss could come out at any point, right? And that's what I was actually trying to cover for the turn that the Mienshao ended up switching in. All right, we have a Miraidon team here. Grimmsnarl, Hands, Farigiraf, Urshifu, and Firepon. I've seen a bunch of setup Miraidons recently with like Electric Seed and Parabolic Charge with Grimmsnarl's screen, so I wonder if that's what we're running into here. To deal with Grimmsnarl screens, normally I would go Rilla Bolt, but then they could go Farigiraf Grim. But I'm okay forcing them to just set up one screen, I think. I think Rilla Bolt are both must-brings here anyway. Probably one Ice Rider, right? Glacial Lance is just good. I don't think there's a very clear-cut final one. Instant doesn't feel great since they have Farigiraf. I think I like Ursh just for a lot of burst damage with this. Like Water Tera Surging Strikes is just really good into my opponent's team and ignores the Reflect on Grimmsnarl as well. So let's lock this and see how it goes. I think with Rilla Bolt, we apply a lot of pressure immediately. I can't tell you how much I love this Booster Energy Bolt, because Assault Vest Bolt is strong, but like it doesn't really put on that much pressure, whereas this Photosynthesis, like Booster Energy Draco Meteor, I don't know why I said Photosynthesis, obviously all Raging Bolts are Photosynthesis, but Draco Meteor with Booster Energy is just so much burst damage. And even just like a Thunderbolt with Booster Energy into Grassy Glide is a lot too, right? So this is one of the leads that we saw in the finals of NAIC. Oh, and they actually lead the Miraidon, so I should get terrain control here, which is huge. Nice. Okay. So obviously I have Fake Out pressure, but one thing they could do is just... Like, if I were them, I would probably switch in Farigiraf and try to attack Rillaboom. They could just Draco Meteor into me as well. So many options. Either of these could switch into Farigiraf. I want to get rid of... Yeah, I should actually probably just focus Miraidon, right? I'm just worried about Ivy Cudgel straight into Rillaboom right now. I'm going Woodhammer, Tera, Draco into Ogerpon. Okay, Miraidon switches, so I would expect this to be Farigiraf. Yeah. I don't know. Part of me thought about making the read of switching Rilla out, because I think if I switched Rilla out here, it'd be in amazing shape. But maybe they just Spiky Shield with Ogre. I also went for Tera here because I really didn't want to risk Miraidon just clicking Draco Meteor into me. But now I'm more exposed to them in the late game. Yeah, they did just go for Ivy Cudgel into Rilla, right? This isn't the best trade for me, in my opinion. I'm not the biggest fan of how this ends up. Like, I think if I switched Rilla into Urshifu here, this is an amazing turn one by me, but I didn't. And I think I kind of just made a middle ground play that I don't love. I don't think that Woodhammer makes a lot of sense. I was mainly, like, I was thinking they might Spiky Shield switch in it, but the Spiky Shield makes such little sense, too, in my opinion. So, yeah, that wasn't a great turn. Okay, now what? I'll bring out Calyrex or Ursh. I think Ursh. Yeah, the problem with this is they are able to reset Miraidon back in, so... I think Rillaboom was just too important here, and I think it was relatively safe to switch Rilla out immediately into Ursh on turn 1. I was just worried that they would Volt Switch that slot with Miraidon. This is probably just Specs Miraidon then, I think. I wonder if they Ground Tera this. Could you turn into you? Miraidon going for Tera here makes a lot of sense. Close combat switch into Calyrex. They could just go Ground Tera Discharge right now. Helping Hand Discharge. I think if it's that, I'd probably just lose. I had the tools to deal with Miraidon for sure with Rillaboom and Raging Bolt, but I think Fire Pawn, which isn't on these comps as much, like you know often see Rock Ogre Pawn, was what threw me in for a loop. They don't Tera, okay. Well, I just crit them, and that probably just wins the game for me. So, I don't love getting that crit in the sense that I think I didn't play turn 1 super well, and they end up just foul playing into Urshifu too. Wow. So I wonder what they were going for there. I was surprised to not see a Tera. Iron Hands comes out now, okay. Quark Drive activates. They can still definitely win this game actually because of hands. I'm happy to just click Close Combat though into hands. They haven't Terra'd, yeah, so a Tera hands here could still put in work for them. Close Combat into you. But I got super lucky with that crit, obviously. And high horsepower. They should Tera right now, right? No Tera. Okay. So we should just knock their hands out with high horsepower. But they might double up onto Calyrex. Yeah, there's foul play. It was less than half, though. We are faster, but we do miss. That feels like justice. And then they Drain Punch into us. Okay. Yeah, can't complain about a miss there. Could have gone for Glacial Lance, but high horsepower would have just won the game if it connected, so I think it's worth taking that risk. Now I do get Raging Bolt back out. I think with Bolt out and with Terrain setup, we can just Thunderbolt and high horsepower, and this covers for most hands. It's probably a Soul Vested, but yeah, if you Water Tera, for example. Oh, if you're Grass Tera hands, actually, this would not cover for that. But it specifically have to be Grass Tera, which isn't crazy. A lot of hands actually like Grass Tera. So I could have gone Glacial Lance there instead. Draco Glacial maybe, but I didn't want to have to click Draco here. This is where having... okay, they don't Tera. So we get T-Bolt. I think high horsepower... Oh, it's a speed tie. Wow. And they Trick Room? That's wild. I was just going to say, this is where having 4 speed EVs on Calyrex is awesome, because we outsped Iron Hands last turn, but then they were faster than us. So... wow, that's wild. But I feel like the right player ends up winning this game, which is them, since I got lucky with that crit with Close Combat onto them. Anyway, that's crazy. So, okay, they go for Helping Hand. I mean, it's still possible for Raging Bolt to pull this off, but never mind. I think in this game, yeah, it's like Rillaboom is just too important, and like to lose it on turn 1 means I don't have terrain control anymore. I think we had the right pieces though, honestly. But yeah, the fact that it was actually a speed tie between Iron Hands and Calyrex is nuts, because like this Calyrex specifically has 4 speed EVs in situations like this to outspeed like other Iron Hands and Calyrex Ice Riders. And so I felt pretty confident after we saw like move first. I was like, okay, like what are the odds they're running exactly the same amount of speed investment? But the fact that it was a speed tie and they won the speed tie is pretty wild there. But props to my opponent, because they also had to make the right play there of targeting Calyrex, right? And yeah, in the end, like I was curious what the Miraidon was going for there, but I'm glad my opponent, and like I really wish we could have played this game without that crit, just because I would have liked to see how it would have played out. But to me, like turn 1, the Miraidon switching to Feargraph was fairly telegraphed, and so I think I maybe should have just committed a little bit harder to Lareed and switched in Urshifu immediately. Because like I said, if I switch in Ursh, I don't lose Rillaboom and I knock them out. The Rillaboom just gives me so much control for the remainder of the game, but losing on turn 1 meant that I lost a huge piece in this battle, but that was nuts. All right, we've got an Ice Rider matchup here, and it's a near mirror, but they have Iron Valiant, which is super interesting. I'm curious what Valiant has to offer here for my opponent. I think I definitely want Ice Rider, obviously. I want Raging Bolt. I think Bolt feels really good, actually. We have Will-O-Wisp on Instant, so I probably want to bring that. Pelliper is interesting because it does give me access to Wide Guard. Ursh is scary to bring. Mainly because of the Bolt. So yeah, I don't mind leading Bolt here. I think Bolt Calyrex is interesting. Just put on a lot of offensive pressure immediately. Instant in the back. And then Pelliper as the fourth. I think I could definitely go with Urshifu over Pelliper in this one. And the logic here is that Urshifu with Rain and Surging Strikes just does a lot of damage, but I don't feel super comfortable bringing it here, mainly because they have Raging Bolt, and because a lot of Calyrexes are going to be Water Tera as well. So if they're Water Tera, then obviously you can just defensively Tera against us. I do think one other interesting consideration was Urshifu Calyrex and just go straight for coaching onto the Calyrex. That could have been kind of cool. They're going to go Pelliper Bolt. Okay. That works for me. I think here, a bunch of different things we can do. I suspect we'll be able to bait out Tera from their end. Mainly curious if their Raging Bolt goes for a Tera. I personally would like to go for... Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know how fast their Bolt is either. I could just double protect with both Pokemon on turn 1, but then they can Thunderbolt, Weather Ball, Calyrex turn 2. I personally don't mind going for Fairy Tera here. The question is whether or not they're also Fairy Tera. Fairy Tera, Draco, Protect, I think is okay. Okay, so they're going to Tera first. See if it's Electric or Fairy. Okay, it's Electric. Yeah. So a lot of people have been using Electric Tera on Raging Bolt, and one of the advantages, of course, of having Fairy Tera here is that we have an edge against the opposing Raging Bolt. So Draco's not going to get a knockout. I'm mainly curious if there's any chance Draco into Thunderclap can get a KO. Because Draco should still do a ton. Let's see. I can see Wide Guard coming out from Pelliper right now. Or just double up onto my Calyrex. We're going to protect. Yep, they Thunderbolt into us. I think I'll probably sacrifice Calyrex this next turn, switch it out into Incin. As they do indeed double up there. Yep. We'll go for Draco here with our Raging Bolt. Nice. That should be in Thunderclap KO range. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to get out of this turn. So now I can Thunderclap into you. And Trick Room. And I want a Trick Room here just because we can see here that our Raging Bolt is pretty slow relative to our opponent. We're slower than the Pelliper. I've got Incineroar in the back as well, which is not exactly the fastest Pokemon. Yep, they just go for Weather Ball here. And that does around 1/3 of our health. Cool. So we get Trick Room up successfully. I think now what's interesting is if they bring out their Ice Rider, we have this weird Ice Rider war. But I have the Pokemon advantage right now, which is obviously really good for us. They're going to bring out Ice Rider. Presumably, you should start clicking Wide Guard now. Wide Guard Glacial Lance, for example. I don't mind going for Thunderbolt here onto Pelliper. I could Glacial Lance here just to force them to Wide Guard. Because Pelliper could also protect here. And they don't even go for Wide Guard. Wow. Okay, nice. So we should just KO the Pelliper here. Yep. They Glacial Lance. That's fine. Is that a crit onto my Bolt? Yeah. That's fine. Double critical hit. Okay. A little bit less than ideal, but it's still okay. Now that we've eliminated their Pelliper, my Pelliper should completely shut down their Calyrex, right? as we'll be able to wide guard with it. And Urshifu's their last one. That is a really good final one to see here because I can just Thunderclap that slot. So I'm happy to Thunderclap here. I think I'm okay just going for Thunderclap and Glacial Lance right now, which would cover for Focus Sash Urshifu. Okay. So they're not Scarfed. That's good to confirm. But with Pelly in the back, I feel okay going for this play. And if they were Scarf Urshifu, this would just probably win us the game immediately. Okay, so we Glacial Lance. They're going to retaliate back with Glacial Lance. The double crit was pretty crazy, but that's okay. Now with this, I can just safely bring in my Pelliper. So they get a Chilling Neigh boost. Let's bring up Pelliper. We can go for Hurricane here onto Urshifu and another Glacial Lance. So my main question is what item the Urshifu has. Focus Sash does make a lot of sense here. To which then you could Aqua Jet into Calyrex, and then the question is whether or not the Aqua Jet would knock us out. Incin is obviously going to be pretty valuable into their Calyrex in the endgame, especially because we have Fake Out, Will-O-Wisp, and Knockoff. And Pelly plus Incin should just win against their Calyrex. They're not even going to go for an Aqua Jet here, though. Okay, cool. So we get Glacial Lance off. Seed Bomb from their Calyrex. Okay. That's fine. Hurricane here just targets their Urshifu and gets the KO. Nice. Seed Bomb is a way, however, to allow you to, of course, hit the Pelliper. If you run the standard Glacial Lance high horsepower Trick Room Protect set, you actually can't really hit Pelliper. So that's kind of cool to see. Last in our Trick Room here. I am happy pivoting out into Incineroar here. So we reset the weather. And then going for high horsepower here. Okay. And then at this point, Pelliper just outspeeds the Calyrex. So I think actually Glacial Lance is better here just to ensure like Weather Ball KO since you can actually miss high horsepower. Oh, it's Assault Vest Calyrex probably, right? Yeah, so they go for Glacial Lance. They're not Clear Amulet. AV Calyrex is something that some Japanese players were using. So that would explain the lack of Protects and them having Seed Bomb. Yeah, I'm just going to click Fake Out, Glacial Lance here, and then Knockoff. Yeah, and they just end up forfeiting. Cool. I probably just could have gone for Knockoff right there, actually. No need to go for Fake Out Lance. But Fake Out Lance is just guaranteed damage, and with Pelliper with Weather Ball in the back, like any different number of ways we could have ended that game. But to me, what gave me a huge advantage in this matchup was having Fairy Tera Raging Bolt, and my opponent using the Electric Tera Bolt, where a lot more people have been using recently. Having Fairy Tera just meant that I could use Raging Bolt really offensively in the beginning of this game, and Draco Meteor just did so much damage despite them going for Tera on turn 1 to, try to survive the turn. The other big difference maker here is that they ended up bringing Urshifu, whereas I had the Incineroar, and I felt really good about the end game since Incineroar obviously matches up quite nicely into Ice Rider. So in this game, I think the early Bolt, having this Fairy Tera, having the Booster Energy Draco set just allowed us to put on a lot of offensive pressure. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much as always for joining me. A huge thank you to Patrick for building and sharing this team. And of course, congratulations to him for winning the North American International Championships. Thanks as always for joining me, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.